Sandra Wick. I am the crop production agent for the Post-Rock Extension District down here in north central Kansas. If you don't know, I cover 5 counties, or the Post-Rock District covers 5 counties down here. We're not only Smith, but we're Osborne, and then we're Jewell, Mitchell, and Lincoln counties. So we are the largest district in the state of Kansas, good or bad. There is some others that have 4 in the district as well, 4 counties in their district. So, okay, so everybody has a packet, and there's some introductions that I need to make first, because important people, and the most important person is standing right here, because he is the cooperator. He's the one that makes this happen. And he always has a very, very, very good display for us. You see how he keeps it all mowed, and he helped us put up posts. And another important person, I don't know where he went, my husband. He is also a very important part of my job, because he helps put up all these posts too, in the back and behind the scenes. So, on the front page, you can see all of our sponsors down here. We have some sponsors here with us this morning, so we want to for sure recognize them. We have Star Seed. Okay, and why don't you tell them your name? I know it, but you can tell them your name.
I'm Mitch Keller.
There you go, Mitch Keller. We thank him. And then from Kansas Wheat Alliance, we had Bryson Haverkamp. So we want to thank them here, and CPI, all of you guys, you are sponsors as well. So we want to thank Jake Engel and Caitlin. They have been very faithful to bring your interns down here. So we appreciate that too, because I know you guys are all excited to learn about wheat, right? Kansas used to be called the wheat state. We still are called the wheat state. We just don't grow as much wheat, unfortunately. And this year is kind of a triple whammy on how we're not going to produce. But before I get into that, I'm going to let Art tell you some information about the plant. Can you hand me one of those pamphlets there? Oh, there's some in the truck. And Art's going to tell you some information about the plot. If you turn to the next page, you should see the varieties listed there for Smith County plot, and this is what we're on. And it will, so turn the page, Art, and then it will give you some information. There you go.
Anybody else need one?
Bryson needs one over there. There you go. So he's just kind of going to go through the cultural practices and kind of some history of the farm.
Very good. Well, thank you, Sandra. And most of all, we want to thank the Extension Service for encouraging operators and co-operators to do test plots for the benefit of the crop that's planted, in this case wheat. And Sandra was out here with Sandra and Don a couple 3 days ago putting up signs, and Sandra said she thought it was her 131st test plot that she has put out since she's been in the Extension Service for Kansas State University. So kudos to you, Sandra, and the length of time and what you've been doing. A little bit about, in addition, Sandra mentioned her husband, Don, last year and for the last several years that Sandra has put a test plot in here. Unbeknown reason for, I don't know for sure the reason, but my wife shows up and she's out here helping Sandra and I and a few others. My wife doesn't come and help me for many things on the farm, but she does come and help when we plant the test plots. So
and she does more than help. She rides the drill, guys.
And so I'm mentioning her for a good reason. A little bit about this field that includes the test plot. My wife and I have owned it about 25 years. I was in another aviation career and retired about 15 years ago and moved back and farmed it. But before that, it was farmed by my family. And so it's been in no-till operation for about 28 years with the 3 crop rotation: wheat, corn, soybeans, and then back to wheat. The ground hasn't been tilled for almost 30 years. If you notice on this side, the wheat's a little bit shorter and it looks maybe a little bit poorer. And I was telling Sandra, when we had a soybean plot in here last year, Midway Co-op had a soybean plot in here, and Jeff Hammer said it was the best soybean plot that he had seen since he was in since he's been doing test plots, and he's been out of K-State, I don't know, 15, 20 years. But in the process, we harvested the crop from east to west, and we drove up and down this. The combine was so large we couldn't get it we couldn't turn in the ditch, and so we had some compaction on this end. So if you notice, the wheat's a little bit shorter and a little bit more stressed on this end, and we think that's largely why. A little bit about what we put on this field. We planted it when we planted it.
October 13th.
October 13th. Of course, it was in soybeans and was harvested maybe 3 or 4 days before that. We used the opportunity to put a lot of phosphate, zinc, and sulfur on when we plant our wheat. So we put about 120 pounds, 115, 20 pounds of 40 rock in addition. We had some sulfur and some additional zinc in there as well. And then this spring we had 2 applications of streamer UAN fertilizer, 28%, at about 45 pounds of actual N on each stream. One was in mid-March and the other one was in mid-April, and then we actually put some fungicide on about 4 weeks ago. That's typically what we do every year. It didn't make a lot of maybe sense to put fungicide on this year, but we had some left over from previous years, and so we just applied it. That's about it. Again, we really are appreciative of the Extension Service and what they do for agriculture in Kansas, and thanks for coming.
Okay, alrighty. So with that, I'm going to give just a little general overview of the wheat crop that we've had. And you probably already know about it, but last fall, actually we had pretty good conditions last fall. Fortunate, we had some good moisture, we had some good tillering, we had very good growth. So everybody was really excited about the wheat crop. Well, from then, it's gone downhill, unfortunately, because starting in January and February, we got no rain. February and March, we got no rain. So that's kind of been the story as far as moisture and not being able, or the crop hasn't been able to go. So very, very dry conditions are the first strike, okay? Number 2, we had some very low temperature events, right? At least 2 here, and it got less than 28 degrees. And if you know your charts, when it gets in the heading or dough stage, if it gets down to 28 degrees for more than 2 hours, you can maybe sustain some damage. So we had at least 2 events with that. Now the third one that's been coming in lately, and I'm not going to take Kelsey's thunder away, but some diseases have come in. I'm not going to tell you because I'm going to let Kelsey kind of tell you that. So we've had 3 things. So from starting out of being very, very positive on the wheat crop, because a lot of times we don't start out like that, and it's very thin when it starts out in the fall. It doesn't get much tillering, and as you know, fall tillers are what produce the most bushels. Yes, spring tillers can, but not near as productive as the fall tillers. Okay, so unfortunately, there's been lots of wheat destroyed. I don't know if you've seen that up in Nebraska, but I know these guys have been on wheat tours already. There's wheat that has already been sprayed out, unfortunately. So we hate to see that happen, but that's kind of condition right now for this year. Okay, so any questions on the conditions that we had, kind of an overview of the growing crop? Anything? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move to the north end of the plot. We're going to be going through each of the varieties very briefly. Oh, another one walked up, another sponsor, Philip Seed Farms, okay? So we'd like to thank him for coming too. And I know your name, but introduce yourself. Greg Henderson. Okay, so we thank them. They're on the sponsor as well. So if everybody has a packet, those that just walked in, there's a packet of information up here for you. You got it. Okay, there's cinnamon rolls and water up here too for you. So make sure you come and get that. So let's move to the north end of the plot, and we're just going to gather around each of the varieties. Some introductions here. We are fortunate to have Jeannie Falk Jones. She is our Northwest Area Agronomist. And she is housed out of the Colby, but she covers 21 counties?
29 counties.
29, I'm sorry. Okay. 29 counties. And she just started this position.
I did back in the end of August.
Okay, great. And so before that, she was a multi-county agronomist.
Yes.
Out at Cheyenne, Wallace, and
Sherman
County, so clear out in northwest Kansas.
The ones that border Colorado and Nebraska. So as far north and west in Kansas as you can get, that's where I've been.
And then we have Kelsey Andersen Onofre, and she is our plant pathologist. She is our plant doctor at K-State.
That's right.
So we really appreciate, and she's got some plants because she's so excited about finding some plants. And where is Mr. Anthony? Okay. We're going to go and introduce him. He's not going to talk until the middle of the plot, but he is our insect doctor. I should say that. He is Anthony Zukoff. He is in the Garden City office. Garden City is clear down in southwest Kansas. Kelsey's main office is in Manhattan, so we have northeast Kansas covered. And Jeannie's out of northwest. So we have the whole state of Kansas covered here. And so if you have any questions, don't keep your questions till the end. Ask them questions. We're going to go briefly through the plot. You also have in your packet descriptions of each of these varieties. So if you wanted to take notes on some of them, you have a list of all of them right there. They're in the order from north to south. So you can take notes on that, or descriptions are on there too. So I'm going to turn it over to you two.
Okay, we'll go ahead and dive in here. So thank you, Sandra.
One more introduction. I'm sorry.
One more introduction. That's okay.
Polanski, we have Pat Boxa here, and he is from Polanski Seed Company out of Belleville. So we thank him as well too, because they provide seed for this, and we appreciate them too. And they're just at Belleville, Kansas, which is only 60 miles east of here. Okay.
All right. Okay, so we'll dive in. We'll probably do, while we're talking varieties, we'll also talk some agronomics, just kind of what we're seeing as we're going through field. We'll talk about how wheat plants develop, how they pollinate, things like that. So if you guys have questions as we're going, just stop us and we'll stop and explain what we need to work through here, because we want this to be a learning experience for you guys. So okay, we'll start with SY Monument. SY, the first two letters on it are for Syngenta. So this is an AgriPro variety. This has been out for a number of years. Actually was a pretty good footprint across the state. We planted it in northwest Kansas. We like the drought tolerance on it. We like it here in north central Kansas because it does a really good job putting on tillers in the fall or coming up in the spring. And so especially going in a situation just like this behind soybeans has good potential for that type of a fit. It has a little bit of an age on it, but it's still a variety that I think a lot of guys like. You want to talk disease?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one key watch out we've seen over the last couple of years is wheat streak mosaic virus. It is more susceptible to wheat streak mosaic. We've seen that in the last couple of years. We also need to watch stripe rust on this one. So those are a couple of key watch outs here on Monument. But again, a variety that's been out since I think 2014.
14, okay.
Has taken a lot of acres, right? And actually has been hard to replace in this part of the state.
I think very much so, yes.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of guys who like Monument a lot and have held on to it because of that. So, okay, let's go ahead and we'll work our way down the line here. So we have LCS Steel. So as you guys are looking across here, do you see that deep green color of steel? So there's a few varieties that we have that have this really kind of deep, dark green color to it, and steel is one of those. It always catches my attention when we're walking through the plots. You'll notice on here that it has the AX at the end of it. So this is a herbicide tolerant variety. This is a coaxium wheat variety. You can spray the aggressor herbicide on it. Aggressor herbicide only works on grasses. It does not take out any broadleaves. So if you have some pigweeds that are coming up in here or winter annuals that are late, it will not do anything on those, but it will go after any winter annual grasses that you might see out there. So downy brome, things along those lines, the aggressor herbicide will go in and do that. You can do both a fall or a spring application of the aggressor herbicide on this. So so if you have a field that you know you've got a problem that downy brome's coming in and taking off on, this could be a good fit for this. So let's see, it has actually both of its parents are kind of longer season and more drought tolerant type of varieties. So when I think of steel, that's kind of the same vein that I think about going through it. Actually has really good straw strength on it too, so something that will stand up pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's probably the latest maturing of the coaxium varieties from Lima grain, right? And I think we had a couple seasons that really favored these later varieties, so we have to be cautious, right? We always suggest kind of staggering your risk there while choosing a variety with maturity, right? Some early, some a little bit later. Key watch out, it is very susceptible to rust, right? So it's steel, not stainless steel. We made that joke a lot in the last couple of years because it will rust. So susceptible to leaf rust and stripe rust. You do need to watch this for a fungicide in most years. It has a gene for the wheat curl mite, so we'll probably talk a little bit more about wheat streak mosaic virus and the curl mites when Anthony comes up. So it can slow down wheat streak infections, but it's not perfect in those scenarios. And we'll kind of talk more about options for wheat streak mosaic as we go through the plots here.
Real quick, just a quick note on wheat streak mosaic. So this is a virus, and so you think about viruses, you think about when we get the flu, that's a virus. And so the same type of thing is when wheat gets wheat streak mosaic, it has a virus. When you go to the doctor for flu, they can't give you anything for the flu because they can treat your symptoms, but can't do anything to suppress that virus. Same thing is going on in wheat. Sorry, I just stole the disease discussion on this. Spray if we see wheat streak mosaic virus out here in the field. And so I often get questions about other types of applications. I don't know if you want to jump into that a little bit, but something that we can do for wheat streak mosaic, and really I kind of joke, what we can do is keep the wheat comfortable as it's going forward.
Right, keep the wheat. That's a great way. It's like, you know, supportive care, right?
Supportive care, that's right.
Make sure it gets some nitrogen, make sure it gets, water, because those stresses can kind of come together and cause the wheat to get a little bit further hit. But wheat streak, it's actually moved around by a tiny wheat curl mite, right? A very microscopic mite. In any given field, we actually have about 1 billion mites at the end of the season, right? So when the crop dries down, we can't see them, but they're looking for somewhere to go. Green grasses across the way, ditch grasses, or volunteer wheat that's shattered out of the wheat heads, right, and come up before we harvest. And those mites, as soon as they feed, if they survive the summer and feed on the fall wheat crop, they transmit that virus as they're feeding, kind of like a mosquito or a tick would transmit, some viruses or diseases to humans. They transmit it to the plant. Once they feed, that's it. The plant has the virus for the rest of its life, right? So everything we can do to manage it has to happen pretty much before we plant. So we have to choose the best variety. We have to go in, make sure we get rid of any volunteer wheat, and we have to, maybe bump back our planting date to avoid those times when those mites are kind of at their highest populations when it gets colder. So a few things we can do for wheat streak, but like Jeannie said, it's all before we get the wheat into the ground. After that, we just have to make sure the plants are as comfortable as possible. Right.
Any questions on wheat streak mosaic? I know we kind of did a little side note there on that, but it's a hot topic, and it is something we constantly are getting questions on. So, okay, let's keep rolling then. Okay, WB 4347. So this is a West spread number. I have it as an early to medium early. I think as you look back further in the plot, if we were to pull those heads apart, I think you can see some of the difference in maturity between these two varieties here. I have actually looked at this in a couple of plots so far this year. We have it on a fair number of acres around the area, and it seems to be holding up quite well. And I think part of what we're seeing for this is some of the drought tolerance that is maybe coming through on holding up with that. Let's see, what else do I have for strengths here? straw strength I have is better than average on it. So I looked, so just a quick note, I went and looked through variety results from the last couple of years. It was second last year in Larned, seventh in Russell. When I looked at it, I can't remember where it was in the upper group for up in kind of the north central Kansas area too. So I think it's on acres kind of clear across the state.
Yeah, good. Some good yield potential, like Jeannie mentioned, kind of an early maturity variety here. It's probably not the best variety we have for wheat streak, so that's something to keep in mind. Kind of middle of the pack for wheat streak, kind of middle of the road for leaf rust and stripe rust, so it might be a variety that needs a fungicide application. It's a newer variety to us. If you don't know Westbred's naming system, do you want to tell us about the naming system here? It kind of gives you some additional information about the variety.
So WB is for Westbred, so we know the company that makes it. 4 is for hard red winter wheat, and 3 is one of the numbers for maturity. So if it's 3, it's a shorter season variety. We have some others. I'm not sure if we have 47. I don't think we have 4792 in here, but it has a 7, so it's one of the latest in maturity. So that gives you a ballpark idea when we're thinking through maturity on this. And then let's see, I think these are random at the end. Is that right?
This is actually the year of release.
Ah, okay.
And this one's random. So this tells us this is a pretty new variety for us here in Kansas, just available last year, I think, for seed.
Okay.
The 4792 variety is in the Beloit plot.
Is in Beloit. Okay. Because that's probably the longest season that we've got from Westbred, I think. So.
And I think it's been around for a while.
Yeah, it has. Okay, so this is our first K-State variety, KS Mako. Bryson, do you want to talk about Mako?
Sure, I can.
Or we can give our, and you can jump in however you want to do it. Okay. Oh yeah, you are not mic'd up, but you can come stand next to me and talk in my mic.
The cord's long enough.
Okay, so KS Mako, so the parents on it are kind of interesting, is Jagger. So Jagger is a wheat variety that we've known for years and years, all across from planted down into Texas, clear up way further north than us. It was a K-State variety, and so the parents on KS Mako are actually Jagger and then LCS Chrome, which Chrome was Lima grain variety that has been out for a number of years. Mako, medium height, medium maturity. I would tell you, I believe that for sure on both of those. Sometimes when it's a little droughty, maybe it's not holding its height quite as well. I'm not sure, Bryson. Do you feel like it's always a medium height?
I mean, it seems to do. I mean, it doesn't seem to get any shorter than anything else.
Okay, not shorter than anything else. I appreciate that. So, okay, I have good for protein, good for quality. Drought stress on it, I think, is quite good and has really good yield potential. It's actually named for the Mako shark. Is that correct? So, okay, Bryson, I'm sorry. If you want to have something else to say, I'll stand next to you, you can say. Or do you want to fill in?
Well, why don't we, Bryson, go ahead and tell us a little more.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Mako has the WSM2 gene, so it'd give us some good wheat streak mosaic virus tolerance. Kelsey and maybe Anthony, when they talk about wheat streak, can give you a little bit more information on some of those. But that's really why the breeder released it, is because of that WSM2 package. He thought it'd give us a really good wheat streak option for central Kansas. Other diseases on it, it's more intermediate to moderately susceptible to both stripe and leaf rust. And so would be a watch out on a year that we'd get a little bit more moisture and would have a little bit more concern with those diseases. I went back and looked at north central Kansas, the variety performance trials, and Mako actually over the last 3 years has looked really good up here in north central Kansas. And so we have Providence a little later. That's what we usually compare it to. And so Mako over the 3 years is actually doing a little bit better than Providence up here, which is nice to see. So,
Bryson, how does it do kind of in that later planting after soybeans? Does it tiller okay?
Yeah, that's kind of one area I think it'd be a good fit for. Talking with seed producers and farmers that have been growing it, they really talk about how it's quick to get out of the ground. They say it's one of the quickest things they plant that gets up out up and going. And so I think after soybeans would be a really good option for it, just because it does get going quick. It does have good drought tolerance, so would handle those drier conditions that we usually see after soybean harvest too.
Excellent.
One other note that I have on it is that the yield, or for the protein holds really well with the yield potential on it. So with a given yield, the protein is maybe just a little bit better than what we would expect. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And so we talk about protein because that's important when we're thinking about milling and baking. The other part of protein is kind of interesting because when we think about when that wheat kernel is being formed, so after pollination happens, then we have the wheat kernel that forms. And so it first starts to build the outside structure of that wheat kernel, and then it packs the inside with carbohydrates. And so the protein is one of the very first things that's laid down on a wheat when the wheat kernel is being formed. So first protein, nitrogen actually drives some of the protein content, but there is some varietal differences that goes into the protein content on it too. And millers and bakers are sometimes very specific about what they want for protein content. So this is an interesting one in the fact that with a given yield potential, its protein will just tend to be just maybe a little higher than what we expect from what we might expect from other varieties.
Yeah.
So, okay. Bernd. Well, this is kind of an interesting variety. So this actually came out of the USDA wheat breeding program. Now you may not know that USDA has a wheat breeding program. We have a wheat breeder in Manhattan. We work very closely with her with the K-State wheat breeding program. And so this is a variety that was released from the USDA wheat breeding program and is licensed to Plains Gold. Plains Gold is the marketing arm of Colorado State wheat varieties. And so licensed to them, and it really was licensed for disease portions of this. So Kelsey, you want to talk through?
Yeah, so maybe the exciting thing about Bernd, and I will say the name, it's named after a longtime professor and something called a cytogeneticist. That's probably not a term you hear every day, but he spent his career working really hard on wheat streak mosaic resistance and a lot of other things, and he recently passed away, so this is a bit of a tribute to his hard work there. So if that seems like a different kind of name, it came from Bernd Freebie was his name. So the thing that's really interesting about this variety is it has a very specific gene for the wheat streak mosaic complex of viruses, and that gene is called WSM1. Now, you will hear us talk about a couple things. You heard us talk about WSM2 when we talked about Mako, and we'll have that gene in several other varieties as we go on. And that gene is really good, that WSM2 gene, for the wheat streak mosaic virus itself. But when we think about this wheat streak complex, we actually have multiple viruses in Kansas, and that can be a real problem. Those tiny curl mites, they can actually give up to 3 viruses when they feed on a plant, right? So the nice thing about WSM1 is it provides protection against the whole package of viruses there, and that's been a really exciting kind of long-term project coming out of K-State. So we've got it out in many test plots across the state to see it under a range of wheat streak conditions this year. It's not released yet, so this is a little bit more for us to see how it performs in different places, but we're excited about its potential and also its potential kind of babies going forward, right? You'll see that in the background of a lot of different varieties, I think. So one to watch, kind of an interesting story there, but all to kind of combat that disease issue we have here in the state.
So Kelsey mentioned that there's 3 viruses that the wheat curl mite carries. We've talked a lot about wheat streak mosaic. So in addition to wheat streak mosaic, we also have triticum mosaic and high plains mosaic. Now they're very difficult to tell apart out in the field, and so we kind of use the slang term where you will hear a lot of people say we've got mosaic in our wheat, and so those actually could be one of those 3 viruses that the wheat curl mites move. And so if you hear someone someone talk about wheat streak mosaic, they may also be meaning triticum mosaic and high plains mosaic to goes with it. So,
right, it's a really tricky thing to manage. It's something we spend a lot of time thinking about because when you have those multiple viruses, it actually makes the plant sicker. Like, I'll go back to Jeannie's example. If you have the flu and COVID at the same time, you're going to be a lot sicker, right? It's kind of the same way with wheat plants here.
so yes.
So one to keep an eye on, but not available for purchase yet.
Okay, next we have AG Golden. AG Golden comes from AgSeco. That's the company that has it. I've looked at it for a few years, actually, on some seed production fields. I tend to think about it as kind of a short, stocky wheat, and that kind of is, I kind of chuckle when I think about that, but it seems to be a little on the shorter side. It stands really well, which is one of the things that I like about it. I also like to have good residue out in the field, so I never want anything that's incredibly short, but it seems like it does a pretty good job. I have medium to medium short on my notes. That may be what you guys have also on it. Maturity is medium to, or medium late to late, and so strength on it is straw strength, so standability, which I appreciate something that's going to stand and be in the field when we come back for harvest, isn't going to lay down on us. It also has a long coleoptile, so many times when you, okay, so let me back up. Coleoptile. Coleoptile is that protective structure that wraps around the leaves that helps the wheat emerge right after planting. So the coleoptile is important because if it does not reach the soil surface, that wheat may try to leaf out underground, and then the leaves are not above the soil surface where we want them to be. So we want a coleoptile that will make its way all the way to the soil surface. Many times when you think about, you look at the height of a variety, the coleoptile can be linked pretty closely to that. This one is an exception where it has a long coleoptile but has a shorter stature for an adult plant. So a little different on some of that. You want to talk disease stuff with it?
Yeah, it's one that, you know, I was looking at the yield performance. It's actually done well. It's got a good yield record here in north central Kansas. Yeah. I'm not sure if you mentioned that. I would watch out on leaf and stripe rust, so you'd have to watch it for a fungicide. It's probably not the best option we have for wheat streak. It doesn't have those known genes that we've talked about here.
Okay. Next, we've got AP Bigfoot. So AgriPro, this is a 2022 released variety. It has kind of an interesting parentage in it. It has TAM 112, which actually it can be traced back on a number of these varieties as we're working our way through. And then SY Wolf, which was a variety from AgriPro also. SY Wolf actually we'll see in a number as a parent in a number of varieties. I have it as a medium short to medium early maturity. One of the things I think with Bigfoot kind of goes to the name of Bigfoot is they thought that it was pretty broadly adapted. It would be planted over not just acres in Kansas, but a large number of acres, even Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma area. And so that's kind of the wide adaptability of this variety. Drought tolerance on this I think is rated pretty good. I think we've got it as a 3 right now, so drought tolerance is quite good on it. Oh, I also have it's good on low pH, on acid soils.
Yeah, it's a notch below average on wheat streak, so that might be something to watch. It has a little bit of tolerance, but it's not going to have those genes that we talked about here for wheat streak. Just something to keep in mind. I'd also watch stripe rust. It is on the more susceptible side here to stripe rust. Now it has a decent scab rating, right? So sometimes we worry about scab, especially, or fusarium head blight, when we're planting wheat after corn or into corn stalks, right? That's a disease we can get on the heads. So Bigfoot, you know, could be an option for those acres after corn because it does have a pretty decent scab rating.
Okay, let's keep a rolling. Rockstar. We have one walking towards us who wants to talk about Rockstar.
Very cool.
This is a variety from Polanski Seeds, so that's why we're handing a microphone over here.
All right, my name is Pat Box. I'm from Polanski Seed. I've Worked there for over 30 years, seen lots of wheat over the years, walked lots of wheat. I am here today representing 3 of the varieties in the trial, which are exclusive releases to Polanski Seed. And the one behind us here is Rockstar. Now, Rockstar's been out for quite a few years. It's got an extremely good yield record across the university trials, both in Kansas, across the entire state, as well as University of Nebraska. And it's been now in over 100 university trials. It is currently averaging a little over 105% of the test average across all environments. Just looking into the 2025 results from North Central Kansas, which includes the Belleville and Beloit University trials, it averaged 103% just last year. But overall, this variety has been has reached up into the top 5 varieties planted in the state of Kansas. So it's well known, and part of the reason why it has yielded as it has is it's a very versatile variety. You can plant it after corn stalks. It's got a favorable rating for Fusarium head blight. You can, of course, go into soybean ground. You can go into fallow, or you can go into continuous wheat ground. You can do a low pH situation. It doesn't really have a lot of holes in it, so it's a very versatile variety. It's a medium maturity. It does tend to be a little bit photosynthesis responsive, or sensitivity to it. So it does have a little bit of that to it as well. But otherwise, this is probably, of the 4 varieties, this is our highest moving variety currently today.
Excellent, thank you. So he mentioned photosensitivity on it. So that means that a wheat variety, its growth and development is being driven by the day length, not necessarily by temperature. And so we have a lot of varieties that are kind of driven by temperature on how quick they get going and their growth and development portions of that. Varieties that have some more photo period sensitivity are ones that rely more on day length, so are less impacted by if we have a warm spring, which is kind of what we've had this year. Sandra didn't necessarily mention it, but when we were watching growth and development of wheat throughout this spring, we actually have a spot on the Kansas Mesonet website, which is the weather website for K-State, and it'll map out growth and development. As you looked across at this spring, there were times that we were a good 3 weeks to almost a month ahead of what we would typically see for growth and development. And I think we're seeing that as we're walking through plots out here now, that we've got berries that are formed, and we're seeing some dough showing up in a lot of these varieties as you walk through them. So that's ahead of what we would typically expect for this time of the year.
And we do have a weather station in Lebanon, pretty close in this area.
Excellent.
Yeah.
A mile to the west.
Okay, so the Mesonet station is a mile to the west of where we are right here. So very good for mirroring what we've got going on in the field here. But it's under, if you go to the Mesonet, look for agriculture, all kinds of fun stuff on that website. It'll have soil temperature on there. It'll have several other things, but one is growth and development. So it can kind of help you understand about where we should be for growth and development on all crops. Specifically, we have the wheat growing degree days.
Yeah, and if you don't know where to find it, just Google it. Just type in Mesonet, MESONET, and it will pop up.
Yes.
And if you put Kansas on there, the Kansas one will pop up. And, and this site is called Lebanon.
Right. It's not Smith County. It's Lebanon, but it's in Smith County.
The conditions on it is constantly taking data, so it updates every 5 minutes. So if you are curious what's going on in the field right now, you can go look at that and see what we've got out there. So
I think we're pretty close to having one in every county. We might be about 20 short, maybe.
probably pretty close, but yes, they're actively putting up more Mesonet stations all across Kansas.
And
So.
if you'd like one after your name, I think it's about $15,000 to $18,000 to put up a Mesonet station. So yeah, so that's how much these stations cost to maintain in each county.
Yes, yes, yes.
And K-State actually maintains them. Or
Yes.
Yep.
division of the extension service. They come out and look at this one, and varmints dig up cables and whatever, and they're constantly out there caring for it and keeping it up.
Yes, yes, yeah. We have a couple of technicians that actually do a lot for keeping them up. I'll just share. The other day, I got a phone call one morning, and they said, "Are you in Cheyenne County?" And that's the county that I live in. And I said, "Yeah, I'm here." And they're like, "So it's not communicating. You want to go check it out?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I know very little about what to do about this." He goes, "It's okay. We're just gonna have you unplug and plug in cords on it." And what it was is everything was good. We had to reset one component of it, and then it started communicating all the data. Still had everything stored sitting there, but I joked that I was the Mesonet technician that day, and all I did was video chat and unplug and plug in things until we got things back up and going. So it worked well. I didn't have to know more than that.
Now, some of the stuff, they have wind speed, they have
Yeah.
temperature. At one level, they have temperature up to 30 feet, maybe. If
Yes,
you have that
30
tower
feet.
there.
Yes, they do. They will. It will actually map inversions. So when we're thinking about herbicide applications, specifically growth regulator herbicide applications in the morning and the evening, that's the most likely time for a temperature inversion to happen, which can cause off-target herbicide movement. And so we actually have a map that will be up there. If it's green, it means go and spray. It has yellow, there's caution, and if you see that it turns red, that means you should stop because we have a strong inversion at that point for a higher potential for off-target herbicide movement.
Soil temperature at 2 different levels.
Yes, soil temperature at 2 and 4 inches, which is excellent also, especially when we're in planting season right now. So that was your commercial for Kansas Mesonet. Go check it out. Obviously, we like it a lot.
For sure.
Okay, P.S. 1985.
We do have.
Yes, we have
Greg.
Greg walking towards me here. So, guys, come up here and look close at this variety because it looks different than what you see for other varieties, and it's missing one plant structure. Can you guys see what it's missing?
You guys need to get closer. You can tell when you get closer.
It's missing the awns. That's exactly right. So we're looking here. We see a head with no awns or no beards to go with it. We'll pass this one around so you guys can see, and we'll grab another one so you can see the awns that go with it. But yes, the little hair-like structures on the top of the head, it is missing. Okay, there you go, Greg.
Okay. I'm Greg Henderson with Phillips Seed. We're a family-owned seed company based out of Salina, Abilene area. And like they mentioned, it definitely stands out in the plot, or if you're driving down the field, it being a beardless weed, it kind of stands out from the crowd, all right? It
does.
It was in a lot of K-State plots and a lot of plots last year and did really well. I might make a note of the name change. If you look in the test plots last year, it'll show Elevate. We originally named it Elevate, and we found out later there was a spring wheat in the Dakotas named Elevate, so we had to rename it. So if you have heard of Elevate or looking at plot data from last year and see Elevate, just know that's the same as 1985. 1985 has significance to us. That's the year that Don Phillips started in the seed business. He started out as just a wheat-only seed company, and now we've evolved into a full-line seed company, but wheat is really the heart of our business. We've talked about the fact that it's beardless. We didn't really select it for as a beardless wheat. We selected it because of its high yield potential. And like I say, we had a soft launch in 2024 and had some really, really outstanding yields from the growers that planted it. And then we released it full scale last year, so we're hoping for good results from again this year. Probably not as good at yields as last year just because of the weather conditions, but it's medium late maturity, medium short in stature. Standability is really good on it. Shouldn't have to worry about lodging with 1985. One thing I noticed about it in the fields I saw last fall, it had come out of the ground really quick, had really good emergence, tillered well in the fall, and got quite a bit of growth last fall. The the area that we suggest for that's best suited for is if you draw a line from Hayes north and south, and from Hayes east, so it'd be suited for this area, kind of the western edge of it. As far as Sweet Streak Mosaic, I would say it's average to a little above average. It has kind of a natural resistance to wheat streak. It works well on acid soils. Scab tolerance on it's kind of middle of the pack. If you were going after corn, you'd probably want to use a fungicide. And I think I've covered everything I have. Do you guys have anything to add?
Is it CSO?
Yes, it is. It is a CSO, certified seed only, meaning that you can't save seed from it. And it is exclusive with Phillips Seeds, so it has to be purchased through our dealer network.
Okay.
Great.
Kelsey, you have anything to add?
Thank you. No, I think that covers our notes too. So
Okay.
pretty good performance in the North Central variety trials over the last 3 years where there is data. If you look at that, it is called Elevate in that summary from K-State's variety performance trials. So just make a note of that if you're looking at the yield data.
Okay. Let's keep on rolling. We got to check. Let's head on down to Mojo. So we have LCS Mojo. So this is actually, the plot right next to it here says check. It is SY Monument. That is a parent to Mojo. So SY Monument by Joe. Joe is a white wheat variety from the K-State program that actually has really good yield with it. So that is the cross that comes into Mojo. So Monument from Mo for Monument, Joe for Joe is the other parent. That's why his name is Mojo. Okay, I have it for medium height, medium maturity, and good drought tolerance, and kind of some pretty good yield stability as you look across the area for it. And then you want to talk through some disease stuff with it?
Yeah, so we believe it has that wheat streak WSM2 gene that we talked about with Mako, right? Works against one of those viruses in the complex. So in those situations, it should hang on pretty well. I'd watch out for leaf rust and stripe rust on this one. So I don't think it's the best option for leaf rust or stripe rust, and it's probably not the best option we have here for scab. I would also watch if you're anyone thinking about low pH soils.
We're getting more and more of that over the last 25, 30 years.
Okay.
Just because of continual application of nitrogen fertilizer. So, it used to be up 7.5. Now they're below 7, a lot of the pHs.
Okay, so I'd watch on the lower pHs with this one. Probably if you're below that 5.5 range, it probably doesn't have that low pH tolerance. But again, yep, one to watch out for, especially if you liked Monument. It could be a good option.
A good fit to go in with it. Okay, AP Prolific. So AP Prolific, one of the parents on it is Everest, which was a K-State wheat variety. It's half Everest. It is medium to medium tall, which I think maybe as we get a little further back in the plot, it might look a little taller as we get back there. I also have it as a medium to medium late variety. And the strengths on it, where we talked about the not great for acid soils with Mojo, this has a little better acid soil tolerance. So as we get to that lower pH on our soil test, so a little better on that. And then really kind of disease is kind of several of the strengths of this variety.
So we've seen a pretty good disease package on Prolific. It's I'd say better than average for leaf and stripe rust, right? So if you don't want to budget for that fungicide application, or you only want to do a fungicide application in really high rust years, this could be a good option. Good on scab. So again, if you're going after corn and you're worried about scab, Prolific kind of fits that acre. Wheat streak is kind of middle of the pack, right? It's not the worst in the variety test here, but we do have, better options if you're going into those very risky wheat streak acres. But Prolific, yeah, it's been doing very well, and one of the varieties that could be a good fit in this area from AgroPro.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't think we have anyone here from AgriPro, right? We should have asked that, but I didn't see anybody.
Okay,
walk
I didn't
up.
think so either. Sorry, we kind of just ran past that earlier. I didn't stop and look. So, okay, KS Ahearn. So the parent lines on this are Gallagher, which is an Oklahoma State variety, and Jagger. I have it as medium to medium late to heading. Does that sound right? Bryson is walking towards me here, so that's the sign. What I have for strengths on this is yield, and I have it underlined on my card. So does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one that's had a decent track record on yield-wise. We actually, thinking Gallagher, you'd think more south central Kansas. But when it came out, we actually tested it, up here in north central Kansas, and it looked pretty decent up here as well. Really, with that Gallagher background, probably the strength of it's going to be the dual-purpose grazing side of it, just with the OSU pedigree in it. Just unfortunately, it never really got a lot of traction with a lot of our seed producers. I think with Providence coming on the heels of it, a lot of guys ended up going with Providence versus Ahearn, and so we don't really have a lot of seed out of it, and so probably going to be hard to find if you're really interested in it. And really, it's probably found more of a home just south central Kansas with that Gallagher background.
Yeah, probably some better fits for this part of the state, right? With maybe Providence or Mako from the KWA lineup.
Yep.
It's very susceptible to wheat streak, so sorry, Bryson, but I'll have to point it out. If you say the word wheat streak, right, seems like Ahearn will get sick. So just a key watch out there with this one. But again, maybe some better options for this part of the state.
Okay, WB 4422. So does anybody remember Grainfield as a wheat variety? Grainfield, Art's raising his hand, that's exactly right. So you think of the background, the parents behind this, think about Grainfield, and then the 4458, which was another Westbred variety. So that kind of goes into the parental lines on this. I think you'll notice as we get back through there a little bit, so kind of medium maturity. It has kind of that more reddish dark, not reddish green because that makes brown, but you can see it has a little darker look to it. It kind of looks like it has a little lighter or a little darker chaff just on some of this from the front here. Yield potential is what I have for one of its strengths, and pretty good straw strength with it, so will stand well. I think, thinking about we've talked about one other Westbred variety, a couple other ones that I've been seeing. I think this is probably more some of the workhorse varieties from Kansas wheat or from Westbred. Excuse me, more of a workhorse variety from Westbred, and the reason for that is we may not be shooting at the top for yield potential, but it is one that's going to hang in there in tougher conditions. So I think that's kind of where this one is probably more of a fit.
Yep, I think you're right there. It does have good vigor after soybeans, so it could be something that kind of comes into that position. It's pretty good for wheat streak. It's not the best, but it's a little bit better than average, or better than something like Ahearn, sorry Bryson, like Ahearn over here, right? So it would hang in a little better, but it still will be symptomatic. Big watch out is stripe rust, so it's probably one of the more susceptible varieties to stripe rust here. So if we have those cool, wet springs, right, we definitely need to watch this one for a fungicide application. But good, kind of better than average yield record in this region, and certainly one to watch, medium maturity. I think we have 44, 45 CLP. Do we have that in this lineup here?
No, it's in Beloit.
In Beloit. That might be another one just to, if you're looking at the Westbred lineup, very similar maturity, great yield record, right? That'd be another one to watch that's newer out of Westbred that also could have a home in this region. But we won't touch too much on it.
The 4445 is a Clearfield.
It's a Clearfield.
Plus variety, so that would be the only other thing to go with it. I would just add the 4422. So every year when we start looking for stripe rust, I spend a lot of time in the field looking, as does Kelsey. I typically spend a lot of time in the northwest part of the state watching to see when and if stripe rust makes its way to us, because it blows in every year. I have a couple of varieties that I go look at first. Bernd and Avery, which are two from Colorado State that are very susceptible. This is also one that I go look at when I'm looking for the first bits of stripe rust to show up in the area. I figure if it's around, this will be one of them that I will find it in. So.
For sure. One of the most susceptible here. So it's a big watch out there. Something to just keep an eye on. Fungicides can take care of that issue, but you have to be ready to do that.
You have to be on your game and ready to roll. So.
Right.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to
Yes.
Mr. Anthony for the insect talk.
Alrighty.
Let me give you my mic here.
You want me to take mine off?
Maybe if you can do
Yes.
it more easily. I don't know what I did.
Alright. Oh, okay.
I'll hand you that too.
Let's see here. See if I can. I don't have a good track record with mics, but here we go. Is this good? I'll just hold it. Is that all right?
Hold it. It needs to be up.
Up. Okay.
So just keep it under collar is fine.
How about right there?
Perfect.
All right. Okay, let's take a little insect interlude here for a minute. I want to start out with just a kind of a general comment about insects and wheat. And then I'm going to highlight a couple of pests that were concerning for wheat production this season in Kansas and really the last couple seasons. But when it comes to wheat, it's actually a very diverse crop in regard to insect community. So if you were to go out in this wheat field right here with a sweep net and do a bunch of sweeping, your net would be full of insects, all kinds of different insects. There's a great diversity out there. However, it's just a very, very small number of those insects that are potential economic pests. All right, so there's a lot of action out there even though you can't see it, but only a very few are going to be potential economic pests. And in fact, wheat is tremendously important going forward throughout the entire growing season because wheat serves as a nursery crop for beneficial insects, particularly ladybugs, green lacewings, and a variety of other beneficial insects, predatory insects that help to manage our pest insects in wheat. And then after wheat is harvested, they're going to be moving off into our other crops in the landscape to help us out with control of a lot of other insect pests, which for the most part, a lot of our economic pests can be kept in check by these beneficials that are coming out of wheat. So I say that because I want to make sure folks know that if you need to make a control decision when it comes to an insect pest in wheat, there are a lot of products out there that can help you control those if they're truly at economic threshold. But please make sure that if you do treat a field for wheat for an insect pest that you really are at threshold, because a lot of the products out there are going to kill all of those beneficials that have been using wheat to reproduce and grow and populate to move out for the rest of the season. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of action out there, but very few actual pests. But we do have data and thresholds that are published to manage those pests if they become economic. And so a lot of incidentals out there, and one incidental I'll highlight, an incidental insect, is wheat stem maggot. And I want to point this out because there's a lot of reasons that you could end up with white heads in a wheat field, and Kelsey might highlight some of the other reasons in a little bit here. But say you're walking out in a wheat field and you see a bunch of white heads. One thing I want you to do as the bug guy is go out there and give some of those white heads a tug on the plant. In general, most of the time that head is not going to go anywhere if you tug it. Sometimes it'll slip right out, just like that. And if that happens, and the rest of the plant looks decent, the base isn't discolored or bad looking, if this head slips out, the end is usually chewed or gnarly looking, and that's the work of a wheat stem maggot. So that's a fly that'll be out in the field laying eggs, and that maggot will develop through this tiller and eventually mature and girdle that head down in that sheath, and then that head turns white, doesn't do anything. So this is an incidental pest. It's not considered an economic pest in Kansas, so no need for treatment when you see this. It's usually at extremely low levels. You might see a little bit more in continuous wheat operations. That favors a pest that's very specific to wheat, so you could see more of that. But in Kansas, not an economic pest, but it is one thing you can do, kind of process of elimination to troubleshoot why you might be seeing white heads in your field. Okay, so that's wheat stem maggot. A couple other pests I'll highlight. One is, well, they're both mites. So not all pests are insects. So we got a couple mites, and they're arachnids that can be significant pests in wheat.
The first one is the brown wheat mite. Very creative name. It's a tiny brown mite that attacks wheat. Also attacks triticale. It occurs in mostly western Kansas, but it likes cool, dry weather. So in years of drought, it does extend into central Kansas, even pushing eastern Kansas. This year, we had widespread reports of brown wheat mite early in the season in western central Kansas, even as far east as Salina. And so this is a very early active pest, and it's often missed. Unfortunately, and when you do miss this pest, population grows very quickly and it could get out of control and you could actually lose fields to this particular mite. And it's easily missed because the damage closely resembles, from a distance, drought stress. So I encourage everyone, as we continue to stay in these cycles of drought, early in the seasons, I'm talking February, March, April, early April. If you have a field that looks drought stressed, maybe it is, but I want you to get out there and start looking for brown wheat mite. And you're going to want to look for this mite this time of day. You know, it's warm, it's sunny, it's a very active mite. It'll be out in the sunshine, crawling all over the leaves. And you could look down and you'll see little brown specks crawling on plants. Okay, and so that's how you could scout for the brown wheat mite. But that is a pest to keep an eye out for going forward, especially if we stay in drought conditions. If you've had issues with brown wheat mite in the past, keep that in mind for the next season. Scout for that early. So the populations naturally peak mid to late April. By early May, mid-May, those mites are all dead for the season and not really a concern anymore. There are ways to treat this mite. So this mite is directly attacking plants. Piercing, sucking mouthparts, destroying cell walls, reducing photosynthesis, and these mites reproduce so fast they literally kill plants through sheer number of mites feeding. So they reproduce very quickly. Every mite that hatches is a female that can immediately start laying eggs, and so their populations can grow exponentially under the right conditions. So keep that in mind. If you have a drought stress field early in the season, go look for brown wheat mite because it has been an issue over the last several seasons in Kansas. The second pest I'll highlight is the wheat curl mite, and Jeannie and Kelsey have highlighted wheat curl mite and wheat streak a bunch, so I'll just go ahead and give you some high points. But wheat curl mite, another mite pest, right, is going to be concerned because of the viruses they've mentioned that the mite vectors. So this mite isn't going to be destroying plants through feeding like the brown wheat mite. They'll land in a wheat field and they'll start feeding and colonize plants and potentially transmit virus, which is the big concern for wheat curl mite. So they call it curl mite because when it lands on the plants, its feeding induces the plant leaves to curl very tightly on the very edge of the leaves. And in that curl, all those mites are going to be living and feeding. And these mites are extremely tiny, so you need a microscope to see these if you really want to see them. A hand lens isn't going to cut it, but they're microscopic little cigar-shaped elongated mites that feed on wheat and transmit that virus. So wheat curl mite is a native pest. It's found all over the country in North America. It's got a lot of alternate grassy non-crop hosts where it subsists throughout the year. So once wheat's harvested, any mites that might be out, the curl mites that might be out in this field will just disperse into the landscape over summer on a variety of different grasses, things like that. When fall comes around, they're ready to just get blown back into wheat fields potentially. They're carried by wind currents and they can drop into fields on the edges, in the middle, what have you, but they get around really easy on the wind. And so they're kind of a landscape level pest. You're never going to get rid of wheat curl mite because again, it's got a lot of alternate hosts that keep it going in the background all season long. But once it gets to wheat or volunteer wheat, it does really well on wheat. It'll reproduce very quickly and can get out of control in fields and just help, spread those viruses. So the big question is, we have methods to control brown wheat mite, which are chemical. We could spray fields with wheat curl mite. Foliar sprays are not a recommended method of control. You're not going to reduce the incidence of virus through foliar sprays or seed treatments when it comes to wheat curl mite. There's other things you could do which have been highlighted. Mainly, you're going to want to make sure you're not planting really early. Plant as late as possible. You're reducing the window of potential infection or infestation of mites because as it gets colder, they'll get less active, less prone to feeding. They're extremely cold hardy. They can survive winter, but when it does get cold enough, they do kind of reduce activity. And so if you're planting later, once it's not, cold weather's guaranteed to be here, you're going to reduce your risk there. You also, very importantly, want to, eliminate that green bridge before planting. So all those alternate hosts, especially volunteer wheat, wipe that stuff out well before you're going to plant. 14 days up to 30, we recommend a long period of time before planting to make sure there's no volunteer wheat around to minimize risk from wheat curl mite. And then of course, like they've been talking about, plant genetics go a long way to help reduce risk for wheat curl mite vectored viruses. And so those are the two main pests I wanted to highlight there. And if you have any questions or if you want me to talk about any other pests, I'd be glad to do so. So thank you.
30-day window. It used to be K-State recommended 2 weeks to control your volunteer wheat. And now they're saying 30 days to control your volunteer wheat. The last 2 summers, is it cheap to control your volunteer wheat? Is chemical getting cheaper? No, it's not. And so farmers probably were a little hesitant to control their volunteer wheat the last 2 summers because they go in and plant like forage sorghum or they plant something else in their wheat stubble, okay? But then the wheat curl mites can populate in that volunteer wheat. That is the host that they prefer. A lot of people question brome grass. Yes, it is a host for that wheat curl mite. But it's kind of like us. We prefer steak over hamburger. So wheat curl mites prefer volunteer wheat compared to bro.
Exactly. That was a great analogy, actually. Perfect.
Yeah. So volunteer wheat, it not only does, there's lots of other things that the problem with volunteer wheat. Now, a lot of other things that farmers do, they will put their cattle out on volunteer wheat. Okay? Because it's a cheap feed source. Okay? We really don't recommend that much unless you do it 30 days prior to when you're going to plant. Because what happens is when the cattle eat that volunteer wheat, where do the wheat curl mites have to go? Into your newly planted wheat if their food source isn't there.
There you go.
So,
and another little detail, we're saying wipe out that volunteer wheat, whatever method that gets rid of that green. So you could go and spray that volunteer wheat, but as long as it remains green while it's dying, it could host mites. So you want that green to be eliminated before planting, not just, yeah, I sprayed that volunteer, it'll be dead in a couple weeks, I'll go ahead and plant. You want to make sure that's wiped out and you don't see that green anywhere because it will be hosting those mites. As the plant dies completely, those mites are leaving that plant, ballooning off into the landscape to over summer. So just make sure you don't have that green material anywhere around.
Do our microphone switch.
While we're transitioning back to the varieties, I'll just quickly mention another cause. Actually, you get out into the plots here and you're going to think like, man, why are a lot of those heads white, right? And Anthony mentioned a couple reasons, but there's a different thing going on here, right? So you might think, oh, that's some drought injury or some freeze injury, but actually it's a disease. So we see this a lot. We've been seeing it a lot as we've gone through Kansas and done this in many counties. And this is actually called Fusarium foot rot or dry land foot rot. So it's a fungal disease of wheat. And the key thing here is you'll get into the field, you'll see that tiller that died all the way down to the soil line. Oh, you want to pass that around? And you'll think, oh, okay, maybe that was freeze, but you pull up that tiller, you pull back the leaf sheath, the lower leaf sheath there on the plant, and there's actually brown discoloration in that whole lower stem. So the fungus colonized that lower stem and prevented water from coming up at key times of wheat growth. And it actually kills off the whole tiller, right? It just can't move water after heading. So something to keep an eye on. If you come out here, pull up some plants, take a look, see if you can see that lower stem that's brown. Sometimes it's actually a little pink, and that's the fungus itself. So a number of things that can cause white wheat. Always get out in the field and really check the plants to see what's going on. So I guess we'll move back into the varieties here, unless you had something else to show there, Jeannie.
I was going to pass these heads around here. I think we have a little bit of freeze damage on some of these heads. You'll notice the very top of this head looks white, and it has what I call crazy ons. Think about the little memes for a crazy hair day when your hair's sticking all out to the sides. That's what these ons look like. So you'll notice the top of these heads are white, and there's no kernels in them. So go ahead and squeeze the top of these heads when they're going around. You'll feel that there's nothing inside of them, but you'll see the ons that just kind of look wild. I think these kind of got nipped, probably with a freeze. Maybe these were some of the earlier ones to come out. I have one other one that the stem is still green, the head is white. This one actually has ons that are trapped. You'll notice that they're kind of wrapped up in that flag leaf, which is that last leaf before the head emerges. And so we'll pass these around so you guys can actually look at some of what this freeze damage looks like. But yes, lots of things that are causing white heads. You guys are welcome to walk out in the plots. You'll pick up more and more of this as we're walking through. Certain varieties definitely have more of where we're seeing the dryland foot rot. One of the other pathologists told me, he goes, it's like they have little black or brown socks on down at the bottom of the stem. So look for the brown socks when you're looking for dryland foot rot. So okay, we'll swing back into varieties here. We have AP Sunbird. So AP Sunbird is from AgriPro. It has Bird, which is a Colorado State variety in the background. Also has Sunrise and SY Wolf. So Sunrise for the sun part of this, Bird for the other parental line is the Bird. Medium to medium short, which I think we can kind of see as we go along there. Medium to medium early. I think probably this is a fit maybe north central Kansas and then further west. I think the drought tolerance on it is pretty good. It's one that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. I've not looked at a whole lot, so I'm curious to see how it really handles this unique growing season this year with drought all spring long.
Yeah, that's right. So we've only gotten a couple years of looks at this, like Jeannie mentioned. I did do well in the north central Belleville and Beloit trials last year. So I think that's something we're going to definitely keep an eye on. It seems to have some wheat streak resistance. It's probably not the best variety that we have, but it seems to hang on a little better than some others. I would watch the stripe rust on it. From some of our initial data, it does look a little more susceptible to stripe rust. But one I definitely keep an eye on based on some of its yield performance in these last couple of years in this region.
Yes. Okay, next, KS Bill Snyder.
There's
I can
Bryson.
feel Bryson walking towards me here. Medium short, medium length for getting to the heading time. I've liked the look of it so far. You even have a Bill Snyder hat on today.
Yeah, so like Jeannie said, medium maturity, medium short. Bill Snyder has actually turned into a really kind of good all-around variety for us. It was bred out of the Hayes program, and so it's really, they're more focused western Kansas, but we've seen it come into central Kansas really well too, and be able to take kind of a broad acres as well. She mentioned the shorter stature. It is a little bit shorter. I will say it seems like it holds its height. For being shorter, it holds its height pretty well under stressed environment. So I haven't seen it get super short on us before, but I know as we move further west, straw is more of a concern on it. It's very high yielding variety. It's one, with that shorter stature, it does have excellent straw strength. I think it's one, if you're going irrigated or higher management ground, I think it's one you can really push and get the yield out of it. It's turned into a good dual purpose option as well. We weren't really expecting that out of it and for being a shorter variety, but we've had guys put cows out on and have had really good luck getting some good poundage off the cows and then also yield out of it, out of the variety itself. So it is a CSO variety. It's a CSO through 27, and so starting with seed purchase in fall of 27, you can purchase seed knowing you can save the seed from grain harvest in 2028. So just one more year on the CSO side, and then it'll be free to save. So like I said, it's one that's I don't know. It's covering a lot of acres for us. We've had a lot of guys from out west into central Kansas that have had some good luck with it.
Excellent.
I guess I didn't even touch the disease side of it. I'll let Kelsey.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, it does have the WSM2 gene we've been talking about, and maybe some intermediate tolerance to triticum mosaic virus. So that's a good side there. Kind of middle of the pack for leaf rust, and maybe a notch more susceptible for stripe rust. This isn't your best, scab option, right? Is it? What do we?
It's moderately susceptible. I mean, it's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best either.
Okay, so might have to watch for a fungicide there. Yeah. Did I get that right, Bryson?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. Okay, we've got another Polanski variety here next.
Okay, KS High Country. Sorry, I should have been a little quicker on the takeoff here. So I have parental lines on it as Hatcher, Pitch, and Wolf. Does that sound correct?
Does that mean anything to anybody here?
Hatcher,
No.
Hatcher is an old Colorado State variety, actually, that had really good drought tolerance with it.
Yes. So, just for you guys that are taking a lot of notes, I thought I'd give you a little bit of history. In Kansas, they started taking statewide averages and information in 1918. And it took all the way up until 1952 to get a 20 bushel statewide average. So that was 34 years. Now, a lot of you here are from Nebraska, where it's corn and beans, corn and beans. Well, in the 1950s, before the irrigation was developed, the primary crop across Nebraska, especially the western half, if not the western 2/3, was wheat. And so it was very, very important up in through there. So it took until 1952 to get 20 bushel. 17 years later, the state hit 30 bushel per acre yield. 14 years later, they hit 40 bushel per acre yield in 1983. And then it took 33 more years to hit a 50 bushel average, which the first time was in 2016. So over the past 25 years, if you take from 2025 back 25 years, wheat has actually gained around 9 bushel per acre yield increase from that time frame. So there is, and since 2016, the state has averaged 50 bushel per acre 5 times. So, you may not think there's a lot of excitement in wheat, but actually there's a lot of stuff going on in wheat, and the yields have increased, and hopefully it won't be another 33 years to go from 50 bushel to 60 bushel like it was from 40 to 50 bushel. Anyway, this variety behind us here is High Country. We came out with it a few years ago. You could say it's named after the Chevy pickup, but it's not. It's named after the area that it's adapted to, which is the western half, basically the western 2/3 of Kansas, going on up into Nebraska as well. It has really excelled in those areas, 19 to 22, 23 inches of rainfall, annual rainfall amounts. The first 4 years that we had it trialed in university trials, the K-State trials the first 4 years, it won 11 plots in 7 different counties. It had averaged 106%. And it's got some wins up in Nebraska, out west as well. So this is a variety, earlier variety from us. It did well, I believe, in Sandra's plots last year. The one weakness on it would be low pH soil. So if you do have that situation, that would be a tender spot on it. It is probably about average on stripe rust. We do have it rated weak on Fusarium head blight. However, I've had it in a head blight trial, and it was in the top yielding group. So I guess you just never know. I'll go ahead. We've got another variety down here. I'll go ahead and talk about it as well while I've got the mic. And that is our latest release, which is Golden Hawk. And Golden Hawk, we've had it. Let me flip my page here. So Golden Hawk has been entered over the last 3 years. It's in well over 30 some Kansas and University of Nebraska trials, and we've entered it across the entire state in Kansas, and as well as the entire state of Nebraska. And so for its first 2 years that it's been out, if you look at the yields that are 98% or higher in those trials, 91% of the time it's been there. So there's only 2 trials that it's been below 98%, and that was a 96 and a 94 in a couple of them. So very, very consistent variety. If you're looking to replace an older variety, say like Monument or something like that, the Golden Hawk is a medium maturity, can be planted behind corn, can be planted after soybeans. It tillers very well, so you can, and it doesn't really have a lot of holes in it as well. Low pH is fine on it. Wheat streak is good on it. We also this year are seeing that it's excellent on barley yellow dwarf. So it's a newer variety. It's been very, very consistent, and it's an up and coming variety for us.
Oh no. Our microphone is falling apart as we go here. Maybe that's the sign that we're about done. Thank you. Do you want to say anything while I reassemble here?
Oh, yep. Okay, so we have, so thank you, Pat, for some updates on High Country and also Golden Hawk. Up next, we have LCS Radar. Has anyone had LCS Radar out? So I'd say, it's been out for several years. It's come in kind of a notch below the test average in the Belleville-Beloit performance tests over the last few years. Kind of middle of the pack on the rust diseases. It's a medium maturity variety, medium height. I would say one of its Achilles heels that we saw last year is it is pretty susceptible to wheat streak mosaic, right? So I think that's one reason I might be a little hesitant for Radar here. Jeannie, did you get your notes out?
I did.
What did I miss there?
I would just tell you guys that here last year, the Lucas Haig, who's was the area agronomist, was getting ready for plot tours, and he called me and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "what do you think of LCS Radar?" And I said, "Well, it showed up pretty good in pretty drought stressed trials." And he goes, "It's popping up on my radar now because," he goes, "I'm seeing it showing up in a couple other spots that maybe we didn't expect to see it." And so that's my take home on Radar, is that it's been out for a little while, but occasionally it kind of pops up and does a nice job for yield, but many times it's kind of hanging sort of in the middle of the pack for some of the yield data. So
yeah, I think you're right, it's done better actually even in some western Kansas trials than maybe in this area, which was where we thought it would shine a little bit more. So that's kind of an interesting piece there with Radar, and it's been one we're watching here.
Yes.
Okay, we already talked about Monument, our check.
Okay, LCS Helix, so we already mentioned coaxium, so this is probably the coaxium from Lima grain that is a fit kind of maybe more for this area. It's medium maturity, medium early, and I have a note on here that it is not great on low pH areas. So if you have some pockets where you're pulling really low soil or low pH soil tests on it, probably not the fit for this. It is a coaxium, so we spray the aggressor herbicide on it. I'm not quite sure what all else to add on it.
It's probably the coaxium from Lima grain that we've seen on the most acres.
Yes,
it's kind of become a workhorse coaxium variety. It's that kind of medium early maturity, so it seems to fit in a lot of places, especially if you need that aggressor trait. It is 2019, so and I'm not sure we have them in here, but I would keep an eye on a few newer releases from Lima Grain with the coaxium trait. There's one called Warbird, another called Galloway, and another called Cowie that might actually come in and take on some replacement acres here for Helix.
I would agree with that.
Okay, they'll be up in Beloit, yeah. So if you like Helix, it's working on your farm, stick with it, but keep an eye out if you are looking for that coaxium for a few newer Lima Grain varieties.
KS Providence, and so I would tell you this is one that I have kind of on my short list for this area. When Providence first came out, I actually called Alan Fritz, who's our wheat breeder in Manhattan, and I asked him, I said, so I kind of want to put it in our plots in way western Kansas, and he kind of chuckled and he goes, I think we should put it in because I want to see how its drought tolerance holds up. He goes, I'm not saying it'll be great, but I'm curious to see how it did, and actually it held its own pretty well for as far west as we got with it. So Alan was very excited, I think, about KS Providence. I like KS Providence a lot, especially kind of for the central part of the state. I have really good yield performance and good yield stability on it. So that's a couple of the key things that I think about when I think about Providence. Really good straw strength too. That I have. I'm looking at my notes here, looking through. I have great straw strength, so it will stand really well getting ready for harvest.
Yeah, interestingly, Providence was the most planted wheat variety in Kansas this year in the February USDA survey. So I had a producer tell me the other day it was kind of the king of Kansas right now, and I think it's just been one that's moved farther in Kansas than we've thought it would. It has a pretty good disease package. I might watch the stripe rust, but it's good on scab. I would say it's probably not the best option for wheat streak, right? It's probably a notch below average. So if you're going into those very risky acres, you might want to go with one of the other varieties here we've mentioned. But overall, the yield performance and kind of adaptability in Kansas has been hard to beat. Sorry, Bryson, we stole your thunder a little bit there. What else can you tell us about Providence?
No, I think you guys did a good job covering it. I mean, really, it's spread out further than what even Alan, I think, originally intended it for. He always said kind of Highway 83 and east, and we've got guys out in western Kansas, eastern Colorado, southwest Oklahoma that are growing it and have had pretty good luck with it. I think some of that, it does have a rye translocation gene, so it gives it kind of a more fibrous root system, and I think that's allowing it to maybe handle some of these stressier environments a little bit better than what we originally thought. So, and it does have a longer coleoptile length, and so I think that's another reason why guys out even further west have been liking it. So, I think up here it'd be a really good option after soybeans too. I know I've kind of highlighted a few, but I really do think Providence could be a good option there as well.
Good tillering in the fall?
It has some unique pedigree in it, and that has some spring wheat in it, and so it does probably tiller more in the spring than maybe some other varieties, and so it does rely a little bit more on the spring tillering than maybe some other varieties do, but it does a good job, decent job there.
Well, in the spring tillers, it can be really a critical part if soybean harvest is going on and you're late getting it in. You really want those spring tillers to be productive tillers, so that's good with that. So, okay, so AP24 AX, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this. I would call your attention as you're looking across here. I don't know if you guys can see the white heads across the front of this. I'm guessing we have pretty high infection of dryland foot rot, or foot rot on this, where it gets dark at the base. And so, I mean, it's catching my attention for as much of it as we're seeing in here. This is actually an AgriPro variety, coaxium. 2/3 of the parental line is Bird, which is a very drought tolerant Colorado State variety. I think maybe this fits a little further west than maybe we're on the eastern edge.
That was my thought too here, Jeannie.
Is that maybe it fits a little further west than what we've got here. It actually is kind of the next generation of some of the coaxium, so it's maybe a little bit more tolerant to the aggressor herbicide than some other things. Medium height, medium maturity. Yeah, I haven't looked at this one a whole lot, so I don't have quite as good of a feel maybe on it.
Yeah, I would say it probably has the wheat curl mite gene, so it has that gene that slows down wheat streak mosaic virus. If you liked AP18AX, which was kind of its predecessor, I would watch the stripe rust just a little bit more on 24AX. But again, some good yield performance, especially if you need that aggressor herbicide and you want the AgriPro variety.
This is a little taller and later than APAX or 18AX. So,
and I think we've seen 18AX for a number of years here in the trial, so that would be a good comparison.
Okay, questions for us. Or Sandra's walking towards me, so she wants the microphone, I'm sure too.
They just know I can't get mine off. So.
Yeah. Well, again, I'd like to thank you for coming today. I wish we would have gotten rain, because everybody has rain jackets or umbrellas, because we certainly need the rain here. And again, Ruby handed out, and I need to introduce Ruby too. She is our summer intern. She just finished her first year at Kansas State University, and she just switched her major too from ag communications to agronomy, but she's minoring in ag communications too. So, that's a perfect combination of majors. So we certainly wish her good luck in the future as well. So that completes our tour today. Ruby handed you a little card to fill out for us because Kansas State University, they like for us to evaluate our programs too because it helps us to plan things in the future. So Ruby's going to come through and pick up those cards from you. Remember, those cards were the front and the back. So we'd like you to fill out those cards as well. Our next stop, we are going to move to Esben, which is only like 6 miles to the east here. And there is a sign for the turnoff here, and we're going to go into Esben and eat at Sam's Place. So if you haven't eaten there before, it'll be a great experience for you. So, and they have special nights for food, I think, every once in a while. I think Thursday nights are taco nights. So, yeah, if you're ever in this area, that's a great place to eat, too. You know, it seems like the little places, maybe the... and this looks really good, but the little small hole in the wall is the best places to eat. So yeah, sure. So go on over there, grab some bottle of water or cinnamon, and so we'll see you at Esben. Thanks again. And our sponsors, please thank the sponsors that are here too. If you notice those on the front of your paper, thank them, and thank Kelsey and Jeannie and Anthony.